my proposition is that the Dodgers will make it to the World Series a third year in a row. Mainly because of statistics like RPG, which is basically runs per game, and the fact that they're divisional champs, and recent trades, and previous World Series appearances. Starting off with statistics, RPG is runs per game, so that's really key to being a good team because runs is what wins the games. Runs. Over the past few years, the Dodgers have slightly increased their RPG, like slightly. In 2016, it was 4.40. In 2017, it was 4.81. And 2018, it was 4.82. Typically, the winners of the World Series, they have a jump in their RPG. Like the Red Sox, they won 2018, and in 2017, their RPG was 4.84, and it jumped to 5.45. 5.0 is like typically the ideal, which is like really good. But I'm not saying that the Dodgers are gonna win the World Series, just that they're gonna make it to the World Series. And them being divisional champs 6 years in a row just shows how like determined they are to try and win the World Series, which they haven't done since 1988. Continuing on to trades and players, they gave up Matt Kemp, who was a key player, just to get other players like Russell Martin and some minor leaguers. Matt Kemp had a batting average of 2.290, 0.3 being the ideal and above, showing how willing they are to give up a great player for a catcher to boost their defense. Russell Martin, he was a previous Dodger, and last season at his other team, he had 591 putouts, which is basically tagging or catching or throwing a player out of the 634 chances he got. Just shows how great of an offense he is, or defense he is. And although we're only three games into the spring season, he has shown off his offensive skills with his RBIs, which is basically when a batter hits the ball and a player comes in to score. The Dodgers have been to World Series 2 years in a row, which is basically like unfinished business to them. Which would determine them more to go. In 2017, it was a very close World Series. They lost 4-3 against the Houston Astros. But in 2018, it was like an overwhelming loss of 4-1 against the Boston Red Sox. But in the past 10 years, it was very common that the team that wins the World Series doesn't return the following year. So the Dodgers don't really have them to worry about anymore. Many sports organizations, such as MLB.com, ESPN, NBC Sports, believe that there are 4 possible teams making it to the World Series, one of them being the Dodgers. A writer and researcher, David Adler, believes that the 2019 World Series will be against the Astros for the Dodgers. And another researcher and writer from ESPN, David Purdom, thinks that the Dodgers will go up against the Yankees. chalking it up, it's basically the statistics are behind them to get to the World Series. They might not win, but for the third year, I think they're going to make it.
All right, Marissa, I think that you've got a claim here that's pretty straightforward. We can see the proposition at the beginning. The secondary points are just, right now, they're taglines. They aren't really claims. I do know that there is a way to make an inference from those points, and you ought to be making those inferences for us. That RPGs are maybe the best indicator of a team's likely success. That division championships indicate that the team is highly motivated. That the trades that they've made have improved the positions that the players are going to be in, or that the team is going to be in. So you kind of need to complete those sentences and make them declarative statements, not just indicate what the subject area is that you're going to be talking about, because you have to make an inference on those individual points. When you get to each of those, I think that you do a pretty good job providing some statistical data. I assume that most of the statistical data and factual data that you're presenting comes from a source like Major League Baseball or ESPN, but you don't tell us where it comes from. I don't doubt that it's true. I don't think you're making things up about the RPGs, for instance. I'm sure that that's information that you found someplace. You should tell us where you found that information, and that way we can assess its accuracy and see how useful it is. One of the things that I think is missing is more comparative data. The only place that you offer some comparative data is with the Red Sox and their RPGs, how that, there was a big jump, and that's, the thing that points to why they ultimately were able to be successful in the World Series. I assume that the Dodgers RPGs are going to be comparable to any other team that is likely to be competing for a playoff spot and making it to the World Series. Maybe they are the highest in their league, for instance. That would be something that would be an additional piece of information that would help make your argument a little bit stronger. The strength of division championships and the influence that has on making it to the World Series, I think you're missing an opportunity or two here as well. I assume that division champions, for instance, are less likely, well, they're not going to have to play in a wild card game. That part's true. And they are more likely to have home field advantage in the playoffs. I think that's probably true. And that would then make them more likely, if they repeat as division champs, to have a better path to the World Series. And it seems like you've got the elements of the argument here, but you're not completing that part of the argument and explain to us why that is important. You just kind of said, well, it shows that they're committed, or it shows that the rest of the division sucks. I'm not exactly sure that it proves your point, but I do think that there is information that we can make inferences from based on that data that I think would help your argument here. And then on the trade issue, in essence, you're saying that Russell Martin is a step up from Matt Kemp when it comes to the Dodgers' chances of improving their position and being competitive. They're losing some power with Kemp, but they're gaining defensive prowess, and that's going to be an important thing. You give a good explanation about why he's a solid player. I appreciate that. Again, we're back to the question of, well, how does that impact the Dodgers either winning their division or, for instance, succeeding in the playoffs? That's what we need a little bit more information about. The use of the experts that you have at the end, I think that's perfectly fine. If they offer their opinions based on some of the things that you've talked about, then maybe those opinions should go in those sections. So, for instance, if Adler is believing that the Dodgers are likely to be against the Astros in the World Series because of their improved defense, because of Russell Martin, then that would go in that trade section. And if whatever the other guy's name is, I thought you said Kirkham at one point, that Kurdum or whatever his name is, thinks that it's going to be Dodgers Yankees, and it had something to do with the number of runs scored, then that would make sense to put that in that section. As it is, it feels like it's just kind of a tag set of arguments. It's not quite its own point, but it is reinforcing the point that you're making. And I think the reinforcement would work a little bit better if it was in those individual sections. All right, thank you.